The following is a presentation of the Controltrends podcasting network.
Hi, welcome to Control Talk, now your smart buildings video cast and podcast for the week ending September the 8th, 2019. This is episode 329, where we talk about all things smart building controls. And we've got a great guest lined up. You're going to want to hear from this guy. But meanwhile, I am joined by your co-host to mine, no longer the man, the myth, the legend, the secret agent man. That new name for Kenny Smyers has stuck. We got a lot of feedback. We love the fact that he lives a life of danger and he is secret agent man. Kenny, welcome to the show.
Eric, thank you. I don't think it's going to stick. I mean, you like it, but it's
You just upset because your wife was not calling you secret agent man
20,
anymore,
20,
right?
30, 40, 50 years ago, and when we used to listen to that song, we both marveled at that lifestyle. And James Bond, I remember the first James Bond movie I ever saw, how it just, I wanted to watch it again, and then it was like, there were certain movies I remember when I was young, and all the way through, whether it's a Matrix or Jurassic Park, all these new, and then what was the Avatar, but it changed the whole way you looked at things and broadened your horizons. And of course the secret agent man thing was great, but we're going to have to try to make that into a Controltrends thing, and it's going to be hard to do because there's no secret agent in me.
What are you talking about, man? All this clandestine stuff you're doing, man. We know you're doing all this government stuff, and
I'm not.
And,
don't get me in trouble.
No, come on now. No.
Not true.
Okay, yes, not true.
Where's my penalty flag? My yellow flag?
Kenny has plausible deniability here, so he cannot. If he tells us he's a secret agent, man, he'd have to kill all of us, and he's too nice a guy to do that. We don't want that to happen. So, but dude, it's a big week. I've been celebrating my 8th wedding anniversary. So I've been in New Mexico with my wife and kids.
Congratulations.
Yeah. We got married at the La Fonda Hotel in Santa Fe 8 years ago. We stayed there a couple nights ago. We brought the kids, so they're staying with Anna's parents. I'm in her dad's office right now. And so we go back to the hotel every couple of years and spend the night there. And that was the hotel your brother Tommy is celebratory sort of celebration. He helicoptered me on the dance floor. He picked me up and spun me around. So that's one of the highlights of the video there. And no, it was a great time. John Donahue was there, Rick Jones, Scott Cross, a bunch of people came. I know you wanted to come out. You just weren't able to make it. But so great memories there. So we went from there to this like spa we went to. We sort of redid the honeymoon trip because we spent the first night in Santa Fe, got married there in the hotel. Then we went to this place called Ole Caliente, which is all these hot mineral springs from the mountains, right? So you come out and all these tubs have different things in it, like, iron or arsenic or all this healthy stuff. So we spent a night there. It was great. Then we went up to Taos, New Mexico, and hung out up there. And I got to tell you, man, I am thoroughly caffeinated and ready to come home. So we'll be flying back tomorrow. But,
well, you all took some beautiful family pictures, and your kids are just absolutely stunning. Axel he's definitely a young man, looks like his father. Yeah. And Evelyn is just as pretty as her mom. So you guys are doing some great stuff, and it was just man. Beautiful thing to watch and behold. Another thing that happened was the kickoff Thursday Night Football with that
was a boring game, wasn't it?
It was. Who won?
Green Bay won. And all Aaron Rodgers could say was, we have a defense now. All right, Billy, listen, let's get to it, man. We got a fabulous guest this week, and how about introducing him?
I'd love to, Eric. We have a special guest this week. He's the Chief Sales and Marketing Officer for Delta Controls Global. His name is Robert Hemmerdinger. Robert, welcome to the show.
Hey, Robert, welcome. Man, glad to have you.
Really good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. We love your company a lot. We've known about your products for a long time. We had some great interactions with somebody that used to be your company, Una de Boer, and she was great. So you guys, top-notch outfits. So for our Controltrends community who might not be so familiar with Delta Controls, how about just giving them sort of the thumbnail sketch of what Delta's all about?
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. So we're Canadian-based. We're just out of the side of Vancouver. We've been in the controls industry for 30 years. We've always done BATnet integrated systems built on that philosophy by adding access control, lighting, always been heavily focused on energy performance, integration, open systems. A couple of years ago, actually 3 years ago now, I think about it, we were acquired by Delta Electronics, who's a a massive player in the power supply business, a huge OEM company that make literally 20 million power supplies a month. So over the last couple of years, we've been on a very exciting journey with them, taking some of their products, adding our secret sauce to it, our clever capability that we've always had in the BATnet space, and taking that to market. We've got literally hundreds of partners all around the world. That's how we go to market primarily. And it's a very exciting time with some of the solutions we've got coming out. So we're very happy to be here and talk to you guys today, and all your listeners / viewers / readers.
Cool. Well, Robert, you got some very neat things to talk about, and our industry is moving. We're moving in fabulous movements forward towards smart buildings and connected buildings. And Delta has some very, very interesting products. What's your take on the opportunities of connected buildings and smart buildings with customers?
Well, yeah, it's really interesting right now. I've been in this industry for over 20 years, and in that time, pretty much our primary focus was always making the life of the facility manager a little bit better, right? We were integrating pieces of technology. We were adding new solutions to their portfolio, all about moving it along for them, making their lives a little bit better so they can do their job a little bit easier. But in the last couple of years, there's been a change in the industry. What's happened is that people are going to a facility, a building today, whether it's a hospital, a university, a college campus, just a commercial office building, doesn't really matter. And they want a more connected experience with that facility. They want to be a more immersive digital experience with the facility that they're in. And my personal take for this is it's because of the home automation market. For very little money, I can go and buy a Wi-Fi thermostat, I can buy a bunch of lights, I can connect it all together, and I can even very simply, easily get voice services with that as well, and just ask Alexa or ask Google to turn on my scenes, activate my environment. And then I can start tying it into my TV systems, my camera systems, my sprinkler systems. Now, years ago, this was the stuff of mansions and billionaires. And, if you think back, Bill Gates had one of the first real smart connected homes. And this is 25 years ago, I guess it was, when I think about it. But you can do this stuff now from Best Buy. You can buy this at Home Depot, you can buy this at Lowe's, you can buy this at Walmart, and you don't have to be a genius to connect all this technology together. It's very easy. So what's happening now is that people start to want to have that experience when they go to the office, when they go to a hotel room, and they have a really nice digital experience, immersive experience, how they book the room, how they check in, how they pick which room they want. They can even use their mobile phone as the key card to get into the room. But then what happens when they're in that space is that digital connected mobile experience discontinues. So we think at Delta we've got a very exciting opportunity right now. It doesn't matter who you talk to in what segment, it's all about getting the people in the building, the right people, getting the right talent into your facility, getting the right doctors in, making sure you're getting the right patients in if you're a healthcare facility, looking after your guests if you're in the hotel segment. We believe we've got a really great opportunity as an industry to connect to those customers. And we'll still make the facility managers' life a little bit better. We're still going to do that, of course we are as an industry, but we now also get to connect to the customers. So we've got a couple of really unique solutions that we're bringing to the market that helps us do that.
Well, yeah, I want to hear about those for sure. But you bring up a great point. We talked to a lot of vendors about this because, you get to the home, like you said, expectations are sort of set with home automation. But speak a bit about the challenges, because it's not quite as easy to do a building as it is to do a home. And from a manufacturer standpoint, I know you guys think this thing through. Talk about some of those challenges and why you can't just go down to Best Buy and get the system and put it in your office and expect to get the same results.
Right, it's a great point. There's lots of obviously significant differences between the home and between a commercial office building. Obviously, scalability is one of them. Cybersecurity is another one. Not being not owning your complete domain. When I put these systems in my house, it's my house. I don't only have my wife to complain at me for doing so. When we're in the commercial world, we have to think about the procurement process that we have in the construction industry and how we segregate packages out. We have to think about the longevity of it. When I buy a Wi-Fi thermostat and put it into my house, I'm not thinking that it's going to last 20 to 30 years. But typically, when we think about construction's life cycles, that's what we're thinking about, right? When we're typically building buildings and pricing them out. So return on investment comes into play as well. And then how we integrate to bigger systems. I think for us as manufacturers, we have to take an inward look as how do we we typically, none of us typically make products that go into the residential market as well as into commercial markets, but that divide is starting to shrink, and we're starting to see the need of, if we actually make these devices easier to connect, if we make these devices easier to use from a user, from an installer, from a specifier's perspective, it's going to have ramifications all the way across the industry. It's going to be good for everyone. The other thing that we have in our thinking with that is that doesn't matter who you talk to in this industry, there's not enough talent in this industry. Right? There's not enough engineers, there's not enough facility engineers, there's not enough installers, project managers, electrical guys, mechanical guys, doesn't matter. There's not enough people in this industry. And we're not seeing the floodgates aren't open and people aren't pouring into it. So if we actually make our products simpler to use and actually head towards that, anyone can install it, right? You don't need a degree in mechanical engineering. It's actually going to be better for everyone in the long term. If we kind of play out where this industry is going in the next 10, 15, 20 years.
Well, I think one of the things that, because we're going to definitely ask you that question, how you see it looking in 10, 15 years from now, but you guys are sort of talking about the connectivity. It seems like you guys have a new product that we're excited to have you tell the Control Trends community about. I think sort of hits all those checks along the way.
It does. Yeah, we're very, very proud of it. It's quite unique. It's called the O3 Sensor Hub. We released the first version of it at AHR this year. We'll have the second version at AHR next year, 2020 in Orlando. We hope to see many of your readers, listeners, viewers come see us there. It's what we've done is we've taken a whole different bunch of sensors off the wall space, off the ceiling space, and put them into one convenient sensor hub, a multi-sensor device. And that really affords us so many different benefits. And we really attack this from different perspectives. Obviously, we wanted to give the user a great experience. So it comes with a mobile app. We have integration technology with it too. But the user themselves get to control their own environment, whether that's a hotel room, a patient room, or kind of a meeting room, an office space in a commercial office building. They get to be able to control their temperature. They get to be able to control all different kinds of avenues. And we've got Bluetooth beaconing in there. We've got audio sensing capability. It's a speaker. We've got LED feedback capability. And we're using a fusion and machine learning algorithms as well to really understand what's happening in the space at any one time. So typically what would happen is if you're in a space and there's a motion sensor in there, if you're just sitting still like the three of us are quite still right now, typing away on a keyboard, every now and then I have to wave my arms to get the lights to come back on, right? And it's kind of frustrating. Because we're using multi-fusion technology and we're using machine learning algorithms to really understand what a quiet space is and what a space is with someone in it working, we know what those differences are, because we can hear things like you tapping on a keyboard is just enough ambient noise level for us to know that the room is occupied. And then we can do other things with that information as well. So as soon as the room is unoccupied, we go into an unoccupied state, and we don't wait the typical 15 minutes when a room goes unoccupied with a normal occupancy sensor. Similarly, when a room becomes occupied, we can do a lot with that information as well. We know exactly when the room is occupied, and we're getting to the point where we'll be able to count how many people are in that space at any one time with the same sensor. So we'll be able to say, okay, it's not just one person that walked into that meeting room, but 12 people walked into that meeting room. You're going to have to do a significant amount of calling than you thought you were going to have to a few minutes ago. So it's a very unique device. It talks to the architects market as well, to the architects community, because one of the things that architects typically hate is that they design a beautiful building and then ugly engineers like us come along and start putting plastic bits and pieces along the wall and along the ceiling. They call it ceiling acne or wall acne. We're trying to reduce that and get that down into one nice integrated unit. And then from an installer's point of view and from the general construction process perspective, we actually reducing the cost. We've done the analysis, and it is actually cheaper to install one of these devices rather than, as soon as you're going multiple devices, running cables, the upkeep and obviously the capital cost of that device, the operational cost of that device, the cable infrastructure of those devices. We reduce that down to one, and it saves everyone at all the stages through the construction process. You're going to be winning.
Well, I'm super impressed. I'm on the the site right now, and I'm looking at. I really like that terminology, sensor fusion. Who came up with that? That's a nice way to put it, because of the aggregation of all the sensing that is necessary for the room to be fully automated. You need to integrate many things, and to get optimal performance, whether it's light sensing versus using the ambient light, or if you do you bring in heat, and then you got to bring in your air conditioning, and you figured out the algorithms to make the greenest response.
Yep.
What is the so Eric and I had the fortunate experience to go into a building that actually had the speaking part. So in the sensor hub, O3 sensor hub, you have think, sense, and speak.
Mm-hmm.
Does this actually interact? So if I could say, turn up the cooling, or make it brighter in here. Is that the interaction? It's already there?
It's not there right now. We're getting to that part. Right now we're using the audio capability for understanding what's happening in the space, so we hear those little quiet ambient noises that are going on. And then we have the speaker for feedback, so the minute you get noises, so that you understand, the device is doing something, it's recognized I'm here. And similarly, when I walk out, I can hear in the background that it's recognized that I'm actually leaving the space. We're adding to that over the time, so this is a platform for us. We're going to be doing an iteration of this at the most once a year, maybe even more. As I say, we've got another version which we'll bring into the market at the beginning of next year. And it's funny. It's one of those devices that's a joy to put in front of customers, because we put this in front of a customer and they come up with a new use case. They come up with I tell you what I could use that for. I could use that little ring that you have going around there. It's got a little LED, multicolor LED ring running around it. I could use that for silent alarms. That'd be great. That's one less thing I have to put onto the ceiling. So every time we put it in front of someone, they come up with something else, just another use case, another idea, and that's the joy of this product.
Well, it seems like too, Robert, that is one of the challenges for manufacturers like Delta Controls and other manufacturers. You got to make a product that's going to be cost effective. It's got to hit all the buttons in terms of solving problems, and then it has to be easy to install. So congratulations on it. Sounds like you guys nailed that. Is that going to be available only through your existing channels, or is that going to be open to the market in general?
It's going to be open to the market in general. We're exploring different avenues of that right now, so we welcome any interest. But we realize that it's such a different product. It's such a unique product. The version that's coming out the beginning of next year is a BACnet IP version, and it will reside on anyone's BMS system. That's the number one goal for it. Our first version that we released at the beginning of this year was very tied to the Delta system. So it worked very well with the Delta building. Obviously, not every building in the world is a Delta building, something that I hope to fix one day. But for now, we understand that there is some competition out there. And the second version, therefore, will sit in anyone's facility or work with any building on the planet. That was the number one goal for the product development team that worked on the second version.
Yeah. Well, very cool. And that sort of dovetails kind of nicely into something you alluded to sort of at the beginning is, Delta early on, became BACnet compatible, right? And so, we hear a lot of talk about open systems and open versus closed systems. Sort of what's Delta's perspective on open versus closed systems? Where do you guys sort of see yourselves in that continuum?
That's a great question. Obviously, we were very fortunate. We've been involved in BACnet from the get-go. We very much believed in the standard. We were part authors of the original part of the standard. To this day, we're still heavily invested, working on various committees to improve the BACnet standard. And everything we do is BACnet. So we just released our BACnet Access Control product line. It's one of the only BACnet Access Control product lines in the market. And that's how committed we are to open systems. But the world is moving on, and we talked a little bit earlier about the shift that we're starting to see in the building controls industry. And one of those is how we interact with the IT world, and what some of the big Fortune 500 companies are asking for us right now about access to our data and what they do with our data. So I'm sure the buzzword of IoT is starting to fall heavy on people's ears these days, but getting the kind of connectivity that those Fortune 500 companies are asking for is where we're going. So in a parallel development, we're also adding MQTT and other protocols that we need to be able to play well in those devices. And that is a kind of a parallel effort that we'll also be launching at AHR come January. So it's a very exciting time. And the more we sit down with some of those bigger blue chip companies that, kind of reside in Silicon Valley and in other parts of the world. It's very interesting how they think about buildings. They no longer think about the architecture in the way we think about it. They don't even talk about cloud anymore. They talk about data lakes. And they think in storage, when I entered this industry, we thought about storage on iOmega zip drives. These guys think about storage forever, and it's endless, and there's no need to worry about space, and they have no qualms about, well, I'll just collect all this data, and quite frankly, I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but one day I will. One day it will be valuable to me, and I'll work out just exactly what I need to be able to do with it. So we're still committed to BATnet. It's a big portion of our architecture. It's extremely valuable to us, and how we're very efficient in building automation. At the same time, we have kind of one leg in that camp, and then another leg in the, how do we move forward and join that big IoT, IT world? And as IT and OT technologies merge, we're seeing more and more organizations merging those budgets and that strategy together. We need to be right there with them and helping them be able to do that.
Well, you hit a couple really, really top. As you know, Eric and I, we track the trends. And you've hit probably three of them. One we'd like to visit is your stance on cybersecurity. But firstly, when you hit that data button, that is it. A new goal. I love hearing people talk about how they're mining data, harvesting data, important data, actionable data. So it's going through its drum roll now, but you have 2 or 3 ways to manipulate data and use it. You have the cloud, as you mentioned earlier, but you also have a very clever way of using it for edge computing, correct? And harvesting data that you need here to use here and not send it to the cloud back.
Exactly.
Tell us about your...
we see that the way the architecture seems to be going is that, yes, Moore's law, as devices get, cost of technology gets cheaper and the speed increases, we can do more down at the edge. We can put more technology out in the fringe places. A couple of ways we've done this very recently with our parent company, with Delta Electronics. Delta Electronics is one of the largest variable speed drive manufacturers in the world. If you look at variable speed drive manufacturers just in North America, we're in the top 10 list, but quite low down. If you take all the companies that we OEM to, we're actually much higher up in that list. So we're a significant player in that space. What we did was we took one of our Delta Controls devices, one of our small boards, we miniaturized it, and we put it into the variable speed drive. So we created a hybrid Frankenstein device between a variable speed drive and a full functional dual port Ethernet BATnet controller.
Wow.
And so we're able to push more of the technology that we would normally have residing in, like a network level controller, where we're doing some algorithms, some complex trending, some programming, some analytical data. We're now able to push that all the way down into the plant room and keep that right there with the variable speed drive, right next to the decision that it needs to make, right next to the equipment that it's focused on.
That's pretty phenomenal. Yeah, that's
sounds
awesome.
like smart vehicles. How they're going to have autonomous vehicles is it has to be immediate. And 5G is going to help deliver that.
Absolutely. 5G, I think 5G is very interesting. I think we're a little bit away from everything arriving with 5G, but I can see a time where an air handling unit is built in a factory and it's already connected.
Yeah.
The day that it rolls out the facility onto the truck, it's already connected to the internet. The installer knows where it is, the logistics company knows where it is, the construction company knows where it is, and when it's craned up onto the roof, everyone knows what's happening. It's plumbed in, it's already connected to the internet. It's just a very seamless approach.
Well, Eric and I saw the Daikin was the first company we saw that they had equipment that they were putting on rooftops, and the interesting comment was, why push it into the network? In other words, the whole idea with data, everybody thought it had to be compatible. So you get on the network, drive it down into the controller, and then drive it back up to the supervisor, then to the cloud. And their concept was to put the ability to communicate with the web right on the equipment on the ceiling, the rooftop unit. And so, yeah, you're right. There's no question about that. The scalability of like you were mentioning, putting the smarts onto a VFD, for instance, that is remarkable. I know some people put IOs on the VFDs, and you can pick up them. You're running out of inputs and outputs on a controller. You can pick those up now with a VFD. I thought that was pretty clever. So, in the event that, do you see Delta are you moving into an IP-centric controller environment where you're going to put everything right onto the network and going up into the supervisory level and then maybe the cloud? Or do you see one day that the architecture gets flattened one more layer?
Yeah, that's very much what we've seen. We've had IP controllers for a long time. We've had dual port IP controllers for a while now. We have PoE controllers. We've had those for a very long time as well. PoE VAV units, which are very popular with certain customers that really see the value of PoE. But no doubt for new construction, for new projects, the layer is getting very, very flat indeed. We'll still continue to do RS-45, MSTP networks, but it's mainly for the retrofits, for the add-ons, because of the prohibitive costs of installing new networks. And we all know it's not the physical cable, it's the labor and the disruption to an existing infrastructure that's just
Absolutely.
It's more about risk prohibition probably than cost prohibition.
Well, Robert, I'm learning something here too, which is Delta Controls, Delta Electronics, and I think it was important, sort of frame this up for our community, because Delta Electronics, you've alluded to it, is a huge player in the global market. And if I'm not mistaken, we handle Loytec. I believe Loytec is a member of the Delta Electronics family too. But speak about that, because that gives you guys a lot of horsepower to work with.
It does, yes. Delta Electronics is a $8 billion company. As I said, they're very strong in the power supply market. I don't doubt that the three of us chatting right now on laptops and desktops has a Delta Electronics power supply. Your phone probably has a Delta Electronics power supply. And you could probably go around your house now and count 20 or 30 different Delta Electronics power supplies and the TVs and things that you have. We make something like 20 million power supplies a month.
Wow.
200,000 variable speed drives a month. The numbers are staggering. And we are also dominant in lots of other markets as well. EV car chargers, solar inverters, lots of different power systems. We also, specifically on the building side, on the buildings unit, as we call it, we have, you're quite right, our sister company, Loytec. There's Delta Controls, of course. We recently bought Amelux, which is a lighting company based out of the New Jersey area. Also, I think it's 18 months ago now, we bought Vivatech, which is a video surveillance and CCTV company. So we've had tremendous growth just within that building automation market, a little segment here within the last couple of years. And it's a very exciting time because each one of us has some really good solutions, and quite often we get the opportunity to take all those solutions to a customer that's looking for that integrated, connected, smart facility, and we can deliver the full turnkey solution for them.
Very cool.
I did read, I think I read that Delta Electronics was in every Tesla vehicle too. So it voted well to be in the electric car industry, because I think we're going to see much more of that. So then the cybersecurity and the IP, we've seen some initial pushback on IP controllers where people thought, "Oh, not on my network, you're not." And then we saw the response being, instead of being on the enterprise network, you run a separate Cat 5 or Cat 6, and then you're going to throw the building automation network or building management network. So we're seeing all these BMNs and all this different variations. In your engineering mind, what would you recommend as far as running two separate Ethernets? It's a separate cost, but you have additional cybersecurity measures. I mean, what would you propose if you had a magic wand and you'd say that this probably ultimately gives you the best cybersecurity and best utilization of networks?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I'm not too sure that there is one solution, purely because customers like to work in slightly different ways. We typically find there's two good ways of doing it. One is a separate building services network, where the customer can have their IT network and they can have all the functions of their IT on one network, and then they can have a building services network and they can put everything on there. And that's not just building automation, but it could be CCTV, access control, lighting systems. Everything can go on that building services network. But obviously, to get access from one to the other, if you really do want to keep it completely separate, you need to make sure that one has some kind of cloud connectivity, some kind of internet connectivity, so you can connect to it. The other way that we see a lot of our customers like to work is they like to have it on one network, but they segregate it by using VLANs, by using virtual LANs.
Sure.
So that then gives them the security, but it gives them the management of everything's on one piece of copper. They don't have to run two separate networks. And over the years, from the financial industry to healthcare to universities, we've worked with a number of different customers, and they just have their own preference of how they like to do it based on a corporate standard, the IT department's personal standard. We work with either. One of the things that, from a cybersecurity perspective, we strive to obviously, best practices around cybersecurity and in how we handle passwords administration and forcing, not shipping a default standard password and things like that. But as always, everyone can do more. All manufacturers can do more, and we're constantly looking at ways of doing that. We mentioned Delta Electronics. Of course, we have a full across Delta Electronics. We have a cybersecurity team that looks for threats and gets the words out to our customers that you need to do this. This is a change to either a Linux thing or a Windows thing or whatever it may be. Then we have our own internal departments that are constantly looking at ways to improving, things we need to do. We have typical labs for hardening, and we often look to the white hat community to come and help us and provide us some insight. We recently did a project with McAfee, which we're about to publish on our website this afternoon, actually, as you just mentioned, our website, about some results that we had with them and how we're working with McAfee, and they highlighted some things we could change. We've made those changes, and then we're pushing that out to our entire community.
It's an ongoing journey for sure. You're never done, and
No.
it's always like you said. There's going to be improvements, and it's.
Well, yeah, and Kenny, I think you're right, and I think it gets back to, I know it's other manufacturers that we talk to. I mean, they're really rigorous with their partners. I know Delta has great partners. I suspect, Robert, that you put those guys through the paces, and they, they're probably getting updated on the cybersecurity too, because it sort of starts really with the building owner knowing what they want, the consulting engineer, but then ultimately gets back down to the installer needs to be savvy with that too. So, speak a bit about some of the training you put your partners through.
Sure, absolutely. We have we do training both web, as you can imagine. We also do on-site training as well, and then we make training available from kind of outside of our reach. So we bring in experts around networking, experts on cybersecurity, because we're not necessarily the best people to give those courses. We're the best people to give courses on our product. So we bring in the experts and make sure that our partners have access to that. And because of some of our partners are so large, they have great capability to install full networks. Some of our partners are installing full IP backbones, not just for the Delta equipment, but for the full building services capability in the facility. And that's the kind of partner that we look for. They're the kind of partners that we want to recruit. We want to look for partners that are already a gold partner with Cisco or Microsoft or HP or someone like that really take on board the direction and the route that this industry is going. As I mentioned, we've had IP controllers for a long time. We've had PoE controllers for a long time. You don't just throw those onto a piece of wet string and hope they come online. You've really got to know what you're doing. So, we're very, very lucky and fortunate, and we also, I suppose, we work hard at it. But we have great partners, great technical competence, and they are a community. It's a great word that we've used a couple of times on this podcast. They do help each other out. So, our forum is awash with guys helping each other out, getting things working, and staying out of trouble.
Very, very cool. Well, listen, I want to get a little more about your history. I want our community to know a little bit about you, Robert, because you've got quite a background. So walk us through the story, and how do you wind up with Delta? Was it Una? Did she recruit you, or Una de Boer, or a good friend, or how did you wind up there?
That's a great question. Yeah, so I started over 20 years ago working for Andover Controls in the UK. Some of you may have twigged my accent is not necessarily
New Jersey, right?
Yeah, and I live in Boston, but I have an old English accent, not a New England accent. So yes, I originally worked for Andover Controls. That's my route into the industry, and like a lot of people in the industry, I completely fell into it by accident. Just completely fell into it. Really didn't know what I was signing up for, but within a year I was hooked, and I was really hooked around. I like working with buildings and the variation of type of buildings and customers that we work with, and also I really like the various disciplines we get involved in. One day we're having a conversation mechanical, then electrical, then networking. I mean, we've done that today on this call, on this podcast here. We've gone all across the world here and all different solutions, and you get to do that. So that's really exciting. How I ended up at Delta Controls. I've actually had the fortune for working for Delta Controls twice now. I ran the partner business in the UK for a while, and then a couple of years ago, I just happened to call our president, John Nichols, who's a friend of mine and was actually my boss at Andover Controls, and the conversation went from there. And there you go. Never look back.
Well, it's very, and you know what? It's great to hear, because I mean, you worked for some great companies. You had the TAC after Andover, and of course that was a good experience, I'm sure, because they had such a broad approach to the market. The international experiences you've had, and this is a question we have the opportunity. We consider building automation and buildings our common currency, and even though we do things different voltages and different connections and whatever, the markets seem to be the concept of a global product used to be ridiculous to me. I would think, how could ever, we'd ever agree to certain things, but I'm seeing we're pretty sure that other than the protocol differences or KNX versus Dolly or whatever it is, we're really seeing the world get smarter together. Or are they? Would you say Europe's a little bit ahead of us? Their adoption rate. I mean, they've always had a great emphasis on energy, but the United States now has got some great technology. Mm-hmm. There's a little bit of pushback of adoption and specifying and stuff. But of the two areas that you've worked in, which one seems to be the kind of the early leader, adopter, and our technology is going to be one day the same everywhere?
Yeah, I think. I mean, we manufacture products in Vancouver and we ship them all around the world. We have installations half a mile from our factory and all the way in Australia and beyond. And you're right, there are differences around things actually that play into sometimes are external factors. So where the cost of engineering is high in North America and Western Europe, the cost of engineering labor in the Middle East and parts of Asia is really low. So therefore your cost of the product mix is much higher in a project, and that's sometimes what can make you win or lose. And it seems to be more that rather than in America we call it a frost coil and in England we call it a freestat. That's all the other way around. I forget which way around it is. I think in terms of the technology, I just think it's different. So what we're seeing now in mainland Europe is we're seeing the explosion of the room controller solution, where we have a controller that does everything within a room. It does the access control. It does the BMS, obviously. It does lights. It does blinds. It does everything all in one unit. And really, if you don't have a product like that, you're not in the German market. We don't really see that yet in North America. We're just starting to see slight interest from certain customers, and they typically are the more international Fortune 500, Fortune 100 kind of companies that are interested in that because of the experience that it gives to the occupant within the space. Mm-hmm. So I think I don't know whether it's one's more ahead of the other rather than it's just different. It's kind of understanding different priorities and different needs, and sometimes it shifts from one side to the other.
Well said. Okay, great.
Super. Yeah, Robert, well, I want to sort of hop on and talk a bit more about that, because one of the trends that Kenny and I are seeing is the C-suite and the real estate people especially are really, really more concerned with the occupant experience. So, instead of just give us the lowest price up front, no frills. Now I think they're taking into consideration, okay, what's our occupant experience going to be like? Because obviously real estate's competitive like everything else. And again, our millennials coming in that have that home experience with the smartphone, they want the same thing at work. So if you can deliver that, it seems like you're going to get a competitive edge if you're a real estate professional. Are you seeing that as a trend with your clients?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, a great example is I was talking to a software company the other day, one of the largest software companies in the world, and their facility department reported to the CMO, to the chief marketing officer. Now, I've been doing this over 20 years. I had never met a facility manager that reported to the marketing person. They normally report to the CFO. So the CFO can keep a good grip on the costs, right? So I specifically said, why have you structured your business this way? Why do you report to the CMO? And they said, well, we think this building and all of our buildings are a part of our brand. They're the first thing our customer sees. They're the first thing new employees see. They're the first thing investors see. It's a strategic part of how we go to market. Therefore, it should be in the marketing department, not kind of pushed. Oh, it's one more thing the CFO has to worry about.
That's brilliant.
And for me, that was a light bulb moment. That's a sea change in how we think about facilities and how we deliver real value to the C-suite.
Right. And I think what's important, and we keep telling our community this, is you better be able to have those sorts of conversations. You got to be able to talk about the inputs and outputs and the technical aspects of that, but also, the emotional component that your control system can deliver to their tenants, for sure.
Absolutely. You've got to know exactly, if you're going to have a conversation with someone in the C-suite, you've got to know what are their top 5, 10 priorities, and how does your solution and your technology help them achieve those? Because otherwise they're not interested in having that conversation with you.
So, Kenny and I have talked a lot because, again, if you don't have a great product, you're not even in the game. If you don't have a competitive pricing, you're not even in the game. So what are the differentiators? And, one of the things Kenny and I keep coming back to is your sales and marketing people might be your most important people now, because you've got to be able to deliver a message that's easy to understand, hits all the buttons, and goes from there. Are you guys finding that to be the case too?
It's funny, the call I had just before this one was about our next sales program that we're rolling out to kind of arm our salespeople with more information and more data. You can see we've just completely redeveloped our website. We're spending more on marketing this year and next year probably than we ever have done. Yes, is the answer. Is the short answer. Yes, you have to. You have to be able to tell the story. You have to be able to get the message out there. And our sensor hub is a great example of that. It could be the best product in the world, but if people don't know about it, I'm not going to sell that many. So we absolutely have to up our game in how we communicate, when we communicate, what we communicate, and make sure that people understand that value. So yeah, it's a really big focal point for us.
Right, and I tell my people, Robert, it's time and attention. That's what you're competing with. You're not competing with the guy or girl down the street. You're people's time and attention. So you got to get their attention, and you better not waste their time, because you're never going to get it again if you do. So it's Kenny and I talk a lot about sales right now in our industry. Probably every industry is the hardest job in the world to do, the hardest job in the world to do correctly, and one of the easiest jobs to do poorly, because there's just not much room for margin of error there. But you guys have always had a good team, and John Nichols is one of our favorites. We know that's the gentleman I was trying to think of earlier that we knew, John. So he's doing well. John's doing okay?
He's doing very well indeed. Yes, very well. I'll send on your regards, and I'm sure he's yeah.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, listen, final question, and then if you have anything else, Kenny, you can hit it. But let's talk 10 years down the line. I mean, obviously, there's going to be a fountain of youth drug that we're going to take. So 10 years from now, when people are seeing our follow-up podcast, we will look the same or younger. But what will have changed in the industry?
Oh, that's a great question. I think we're going to think about, I think the architecture of our systems is going to change dramatically. I think we're going to see either how we typically draw lines of devices connecting to each other. I think that's going to be eradicated. I think everything is going to be talking into this fog of a network and how it connects. I think we are going to have a lot more connected spaces. I think things that we are connecting now, things that we're not connecting now, we haven't even thought about the things that we want to connect, right? If you think of the things that you've connected in your own home over the last 5 years, fast forward that 10 years, we don't know what they are yet, but they will be connected, and they will add value to the customer experience. And I think it's going to extend out. So smart cities has been talked about for a long time, but we really haven't got there in the smart city space. And I think that's because we haven't had smart enough buildings. Because you need the smart building to extend out to the smart city and make the community and the transportation smart around it. So I think that's going to be the next stage, is that it's going to start to bleed out from the physical infrastructure of the building. And then maybe even beyond that to the home, because a lot of us work from home and go to the office on a less frequent basis than we used to. A lot of us are more mobile these days. So it will go to other spaces as well. And it will become very fluid how we connect to things. I think a lot of the times now we spend time connecting and putting in passwords and connecting that thing to that thing. And I think all of that will become very fluid in the next 10 years.
Well, Robert, I did have two kind of futuristic questions because again, we've been doing, and you hit right on a lot of the buttons. In fact, I have to keep crossing out when you mention them. But we see, like we mentioned PoE and volts DC, and the ability to make one network, put everything on one network, so you're reducing all your duplicities. And do you see the day where buildings will have a big, a gigantic battery in the bottom of the mechanical room, and everything's powered off 12 volts or 24 volts DC, and everything's PoE? I mean, do you think we'll ever get to that? And then the corollary question I had to that was right now, the United States still has the benefit of wasting energy. Unlike Europe, where they really had to be as efficient as possible since after the Second World War. I lived in Germany 9 years, and I was just amazed on how cleverly they made things work and didn't have gigantic refrigerators. They had small, and now of course they're getting bigger because they're more efficient. But we saw New York City adopt this emergency energy thing, and it's because of the our stewardship of the earth and carbon footprint and stuff like that. So the two questions I see: do you ever see buildings being powered by like a gigantic battery, and then you're collecting all these sustainability driving wind turbines and solar and whatever? And two, do you think that I think the United States is going to start getting smarter, because cities like New York are going to punish you like a fine every month if you use more energy than you should and you're not taking active steps. So do you think either of those things are going to come into play?
I do. So let's start with the first one. I've actually been in an all DC building.
Wow. Okay.
In the US, in Texas, in Fort Worth. So the technology is there. It's very much in its infancy, but it makes a lot of sense when we think about how we, convert the power so many times between the devices that we're plugging in, the transformers and the power supplies that we have. It makes no sense to be doing what we're doing. It was very interesting, actually, the meeting that I was in, because it was a couple of different companies, and there were startup companies, and their pitch was all about safety and efficiency. But when they pitched it to the real estate investment trust, the real estate investment trust saw actually the opportunity is less closet space, or power closet space, and that means more square foot that they can sell. So it was a very interesting meeting, because as an engineer, I could look at that and say, well, yeah, that's safe, and it's more efficient, and yada yada yada. But the customer looked at it and it completely rewrote the value proposition around, no, I can rent more space with that. That's why I'd be interested in it. So I do think that is going to happen. I do think that's quite probable, if nothing else, because we are constantly adding more and more devices to the buildings that we live in and occupy. We ourselves keep expanding the amount of devices that we have. It used to be I had a phone. Now I've got an iPad and a laptop, a smartwatch, and this and that, and a Kindle, and it's just going to keep going on. So how many USB devices do I need to plug in at any one moment in time? And now with LED light bulbs that we have all around our homes, again, we're just constantly converting voltages. It makes no sense. So it comes down to infrastructure. How quickly can we change out that infrastructure? And that's for me, that falls into the same category as EV cars. We have such a wide infrastructure in this country for gas cars, petroleum-based cars. We don't have an infrastructure for EV. So it's how quickly can that grow? Really is going to be the answer there. In terms of cities and energy usage, I think it will come, because I think the next generation will demand it. I think the next generation has more of a cultural and socialistic view to what that means. So I think if they do vote, and the problem is getting them out to vote, but if they do vote, then they will drive that change politically, I think.
Wow. Okay. Well, then we're going to sign you up for office. We'll put you in for office and see what happens.
I can't. I'm not a citizen.
All right. Well, Kenny Smyers, I tell you what, this has just been great. Robert, can't tell you how much you appreciate it. I just, so you know, the future 10 years from now, I've already got my order in to Delta Electronics for the Delta 05 IQ booster chip that will go right in my brain and make me smarter, regulate my system so that I stay younger, and that's how I'm going to connect to the system. I'll just think it, and the lights will turn on and off, right? So
we're working on it right now.
There you go, brother. That's great. Thank you so much. Walk our listeners through Plus website to get more information on Delta, and especially this 03 sensor hub that you got coming up. Good website for that?
Yeah, nice and easy, deltacontrols.com.
There you go. And you will be able to see Robert and John Nichols and the rest of the Delta team at AHR this year. So, well, I tell you what, do us a favor when you get your booth and all. We'll post it when we get closer to showtime so people know how to find you. And thank you so much for taking the time to come by and see us. We really appreciate talking to you.
Thank you, gents. It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Let's do it again soon, okay?
Let's do.
And we'll go, man. Kenny, tell you what, man, what a fascinating individual, Robert. I knew Delta had really good people. We met him over the years, seen him at the show. But what an articulate guy Robert is, and man, I'm excited about what they're doing.
Me too. It's a very impressive technology, and I like to speak softly and carry a big stick. Attitude towards a lot of things. And we were on the site. We got to see the technology, and it's amazing what they have put into place. And the fact that they're going to open that sensor up to the market at large is a great choice, because typically everybody wants to put that in their pocket. And if you want that technology, you got to commit to a greater level than just cherry pick my good products. So
yeah. Well, I think we're going to see more of that with manufacturers, because I think you're going to have your DDC products, your traditional type stuff, which is going to go through sort of fixed channels. But then I think more and more companies are going to come up with more, IP based type devices that don't need necessarily an integrator to put in. So I think they're going to use that to up their revenues. I
so agree. In fact, that was the buzzwords that I had over the week as we read articles and prepare stuff, and we might want to mention why we didn't have much activity on the site.
Oh yeah. Talking about getting all dressed up, man. We are in the process of prettying up the Control Trends site. We're revamping it. It's going to have a new look, a new feel, and part of that is you have to sort of like take all your posts and you have to change it all over, get it, which can take about a week. And anything in that time period, when you back everything up and you change it over, anything you add to that, you have to go back and re-add again. So Kenny and I are sort of taking an opportunity that's a little bit slow news-wise and not doing a lot of posts, but we hope we have this new website up in the next week or so, and it should be really nice, man. We got new color palette, the whole 9 yards, man.
Really nice. I think it got to keep renewing the appearance and make things exciting, create curiosity. But the Control Trends Awards are fully afoot now. So we really, really appreciate the response from the sponsors and the people that make it happen. Again, the football season started. That kind of was like the actual. Now it's fall. September 23rd, I think, is official first day of fall. But in my mind, we're already heading towards Thanksgiving. That's the next big thing that I can think of. That Halloween never meant much to me, but Thanksgiving's big, and then 2 blinks, a couple weeks, and it's Control Trends.
Control Trends Super Bowl extravaganza. It's going to be special, and like I said, I think we got one more platinum sponsorship left. We'll be sending the sponsorship information out to our existing golds and bronze and silvers, so they can get on board. And if there's any tickets left over, then we'll open it up to other people that want to become sponsors. We keep it very, very loyal to the people that have been loyal to us. So we appreciate it, because without the sponsors, we just couldn't make it happen. So, all right, Kenny Smyers, I think with that, I think we're going to call this a wrap. Great conversation with Robert from Delta Controls. Really appreciate him. Secret agent man, go do something clandestine. Don't tell us about it, because we don't want you to have to kill us. But remember, be bold, stay in control, stay secretive, and what else did I say?
Stay relevant.
Oh, okay. And stay relevant.
Indeed, Eric.
Indeed, Kenny Smyers. All right. Very good, brother. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.
All right. Bye.